Hello, sixth grade. Welcome to Wednesday. All right, today we are going to be just reading Langston Terrace, which is our story for today. And so instead of doing the comprehension questions along with the reading today, I'm just going to ask you guys a few vocab questions as we go. So I'll ask you to define a vocab word by clicking the right answer on Edpuzzle, and you can definitely Google the word, or you can look in a dictionary or in your book, or you could ask someone who maybe has a really great vocabulary. I just want you guys to practice, looking for words you don't know and using them to better understand the stories we're reading. Thank you, by the way, for everybody who filled out the survey. That's very helpful. And if you haven't filled it out yet, I'd really encourage you to go ahead and do that right now. But let's begin our story. So, this is Langston Terrace by Eloise Greenfield. Okay. I fell in love with Langston Terrace the very first time I saw it. Our family had been living in 2 rooms of a 3-story house when Mama and Daddy saw the newspaper article telling of the plans to build it. It was going to be a low-rent housing project in Northeast Washington, and it would be named in honor of John Mercer Langston, the famous black lawyer, educator, and congressman. So many people needed housing and wanted to live there, many more than there would be room for. They were all filling out applications. Okay, so that's our first vocab word. Go ahead and either look in your book, look in a dictionary, or look online to find what the definition of applications is, or application. And then write your answer or select the answer in Edpuzzle. Okay, hopefully you found that application means forms filled out to make a request. And so in this case, what the family is doing is they're filling out a form to make the request to live in this new housing unit that's getting built, because they want to move somewhere better. All right. They were all filling out applications, hoping to be one of the 274 families chosen. My parents filled out one too. I didn't want to move. I knew our house was crowded. There were 11 of us, 6 adults and 5 children. But I didn't want to leave my friends, and I didn't want to go to a strange place and be the new person in a neighborhood and a school where most of the other children already knew each other. I was 8 years old, and I had been to 3 schools. We had moved 5 times since we'd been in Washington, each time trying to get more space and a better place to live. But rent was high, so we'd always lived in a house with relatives and friends, and shared the rent. One of the people in our big household was Lily, Daddy's cousin and Mama's best friend. She and her husband also applied for a place in the new project, and during the months that it was being built, Lily and Mama would sometimes walk 15 blocks just to stand and watch the workmen digging holes and laying bricks. They'd just stand there watching and wishing. And at home, that was all they could talk about. When we get our new place, if we get our new place. Lily got her good news first. I could still see her and Mama standing at the bottom of the hall steps, hugging and laughing and crying, happy for Lily, then sitting on the steps, worrying and wishing again for Mama. Finally, one evening, a woman came to the house with our good news, and Mama and Daddy went over and picked out the house they wanted. We moved on my 9th birthday. Wilbur, Gerald, and I went to school that morning from one house, and when Daddy came to pick us up, he took us home to another one. All the furniture had been moved while we were in school. Langston Terrace was a lovely birthday present. It was built on a hill, a group of tan brick houses and apartments with a playground at its center. The red mud surrounding the concrete walks had not yet been covered with black soil and grass seed, and the holes that would soon be homes for young trees were filled with rainwater. But it still looked beautiful to me. We had a whole house all to ourselves. Upstairs and downstairs, 2 bedrooms, and a living room would be my bedroom at night. Best of all, I wasn't the only new person. Everybody was new to this new little community. And by the time school opened in the fall, we had gotten used to each other and had made friends with other children in the neighborhood too. I guess most of the parents thought of the new place as an in-between place. They were glad to be there, but their dream was to save enough money to pay for a house that would be their own. Saving was hard, though, and slow, because each time somebody in a family got a raise on the job, it had to be reported to the manager of the project so that the rent could be raised too. Most people stayed years longer than they planned to. but they didn't let that stop them from enjoying life. They formed a resident council. Okay, now I'd like you guys to look up the word resident. You can look in your book, you can Google it, you can look in a dictionary, but choose the best definition from the list here on Edpuzzle. Alright, you probably found that resident means living in a particular place. And so a resident is someone who lives in a particular place. So a resident council is a council or a group, like a committee, made up of people that live in a particular place. Let's move on. Okay. They formed a resident council to look into any neighborhood problems that might come up. They started a choral group and presented music and poetry programs on Sunday evenings in the social room or on the playground. On weekends, they played horseshoes and softball and other games. They had a reading club that met once a week in the Langston branch of the public library. And after it opened in the basement, one of the apartment buildings, after it opened in the basement of one of the apartment buildings. The library was very close to my house. I could leave by my back door and be there in 2 minutes. The playground was right in front of my house, and after my sister Betty was born, and we moved a few doors down to a 3-bedroom house, I could look out of my bedroom window to see if any of my friends were out playing. There were so many games to play and things to do. We played hide and seek at the lamppost, paddle tennis and shuffleboard, dodgeball and jacks. We danced in fire plug showers, jumped rope to rhymes, played bouncy bouncy bally, swinging one leg over a bouncing ball, played baseball on a nearby field, had parties in the social room, and bus trips to the beach. In the playroom, we played ping pong and pool, learned to sew and embroider and crochet. For us, Langston Terrace wasn't an in-between place. It was a growing-up place, a good growing-up place. Neighbors who cared, family and friends, and a lot of fun. Life was good. Not perfect, but good. We knew about problems, heard about them, saw them, lived through some hard ones ourselves, but our community wrapped itself around us, put itself between us and the hard knocks to cushion the blows. It's been many years since I moved away, but every once in a while, but every once in a long while, I go back, just to look at things and remember. The large stone animals that decorated the playground are still there. A walrus, a hippo, a frog, and 2 horses. They've started to crack now, but I remember when they first came to live with us. They were friends, to climb on or to lean against or to gather around in the evening. You could sit on the frog's head and look way out over the city at the tall trees and rooftops. Nowadays, whenever I run into old friends, mostly at a funeral or maybe a wedding, after we've talked about how we've been and what we've been doing, and how old our children are, we always end up talking about our child time in our old neighborhood. And somebody will say, one of these days we ought to have a Langston reunion. All right, that's the last word I'd like you to look up today. Go ahead and look up reunion, either on Google, in your book, or in a dictionary. Okay, reunion means a gathering of people who've been separated. You're probably familiar with this word. A family reunion or a high school reunion, that's when people who knew each other and were with each other come back together after having been separated. So these people want to make a Langston reunion with all the people that they lived with. Okay, that's what we always called it, just Langston, without the terrace. I guess because it sounded more homey, and that's what Langston was. It was a home. Okay, we ended pretty quick after that one. But that's the end of our story today. So thank you for joining me and for listening. Tomorrow we'll do the comprehension questions. So I'll see you then.